reading from the book of Sirach. My child, conduct your affairs with humility, and you will be loved more than a giver of gifts. Humble yourself the more, the greater you are, and you will find favor with God. What is too sublime for you, seek not. Into things beyond your strength, search not. The mind of a sage appreciates proverbs, and an attentive ear is the joy of the wise. Water quenches a flaming fire, and alms atone for sins. The word of the Lord. A reading from the letter to the Hebrews. Brothers and sisters, you have not approached that which could be touched, and the blazing fire and glooming darkness, and a storm and a trumpet blast, and a voice speaking words such that those who heard begged that no message be further addressed to them. No, you have approached Mount Zion, and the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and countless angels in festal gathering, and the assembly of the firstborn enrolled in heaven, and God, the judge of all, and the spirits of the just made perfect, and Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and the sprinkled blood that speaks more eloquently than that of Abel. The word of the Lord.
be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you may have been invited by him. And the host who invited both of you may approach you and say, "Give your place to this man." And then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend, move up to a higher position." Then you will enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to the host who invited him, "When you hold a lunch or dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your wealthy neighbors, in case they may invite you back and you have repayment. Rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The Gospel of the Lord.
This weekend we are doing something we haven't done in a couple of years, which is to celebrate our Parish Fest. And normally, so hopefully after Mass you stop by in the parking lot. There'll be food and drink, dancing, music. If you want a 55-inch TV, you got to buy a raffle ticket. Raffle will be at 8 o'clock this evening. Winner need not be present to win the TV, as long as you fill out your raffle ticket, all right. And normally we reflect on St Turibius, but because I'm pastor, and I'm an Augustinian, and tomorrow, August 28th, is the feast of St. Augustine. I made the executive decision that we'll celebrate St. Turibius on the 18th of September, 2 days before the opening of our religious ed program, and reflect on the importance of St. Turibius for education and unifying. And today, Father Jack and I, or during the weekend, I'd like to just talk a little bit, because we don't do it enough, talk a little bit about Augustinians, which Father Jack, Father Chris, myself, Father Robert, Father John Sotek, who was here, are part of, and Father Jack Turney are part of that. Augustine was what they call a father of the church. He was very intelligent. He had a gift of being able to preach and to proclaim the word. He was a rhetoric. And today we celebrate the feast of his mom, St. Monica, because she was an instrumental part in his conversion to Catholicism. Because as he was growing up, he was trying all these other Manichaeism and all these other different religions and beliefs at the time. But his mother always prayed for him. And in fact, she pestered him so much that he actually left where they were living and went somewhere else to escape his mom. I don't think any of us would do that, but that was part of it. And then finally, when they got together, they had a moment in a garden where they had a beatific vision, which convinced Augustine that he was on the right path and he needed to change his life and go forward. And there's another very famous part of Augustine where he's in a garden meditating, and he hears a little child's angel's voice that says, "Take up and read." And he goes to the Bible and he reads this verse that changes his life. And he then begins to make his conversion, and eventually ends up being a bishop in Hippo and a father of the church. And he also wrote a rule of life, and that's what I like to talk about just a little bit. So Augustine lived between 354 AD and he died in 430 AD. And he wrote another famous book, his Confessions, around 400 AD, where he begins his point of reflecting on his life in a systematic manner and writing stuff down. Now, I know a lot of us keep daily journals, and we may remember stuff going on, but Augustine's Confessions is a very famous work on how a man reflects, or a person reflects, on the presence of God in his life, through the good and through the bad and through the difficulties, and how he attributes that his mother's help in others when he's open to a different spirit, how he could be changed and going forward. And then he wrote a rule of life, and he invited others to come and live with him. And that rule of life in 1244, a group of monks, hermits, well after Augustine's death, came to Pope Innocent VI and asked to be joined together and have a rule of life that would help them in their daily striving for God, and they received the rule of St. Augustine. And then different groups got it, and if you, the short version of my Augustinian history teacher would kill me for the summary I'm giving you, because it's not as detailed as he would give. But in 1256, they had what we call for us as Augustinians the Grand Union, when all these little groups of monks that were following Augustine kind of said, we're going to do it together. Well, then we began politics in the order, and it was in Italy that it happened, and we have a whole history going through that. But as I reflect upon that, and that's how we got to be Augustinians, as I reflect on my own calling, one of the reasons I chose to be an Augustinian was the following. When I was in grammar school, in the 6th grade, on the north side, and the Augustinians were on the south side, St. Clare Montefiasco Parish, St. Rita Parish, St. Rita High School Parish, currently at this parish. There were no Augustinians on the north side. So one day, when I was in 6th grade, two of the vocation directors came up, and they had their little brochures for what they called Seminary Week. Because we had a high school in Holland, Michigan, on a beautiful lake. We had 650 acres of property, a mile of beach. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous place. And so I brought the brochure home, and at the time it may have seemed like a lot of money, but for $10, my mother looks at it and she says, "You're going." Now, I never talked to my mother about being a priest or going, but she figured, get him out of the house for 2 weeks in the summer, I don't have to deal with him, is what I'm thinking. So I went up and I took the entrance exam. If they had it at the thing, and I passed and stuff. So after 8th grade, then I began, maybe after that experience, I began to think a little bit more about maybe God's calling me to do this. And so I went to their high school program, then I went out to Villanova, and the rest is history. It's not about me, but the rest is history. And one of the reasons when I had my Mass of Thanksgiving at my home parish on the north side, the diocesan pastor asked me, "How did we lose you for the diocese?" And I looked at him and I said, "In my 8 years in the grammar school, not once did you come in to talk about priesthood." The Augustinians came to the grammar school on the north side. The Salesians came to the grammar school on the north side. Not once did the vocation director for the diocesans come into the grammar school. And the other reason, as I reflected on my life and how I would live and my gifts and my talents and my challenges, one of the things about the Augustinian rule is that we put everything in common. And it's not just our paychecks and stuff. It's we make a commitment to share our lives on a more deeper level with one another in the house. So we pray together, we should have meals together, we should sit and converse, and we should ask people, "Hey, you're not that good, you don't look that well today, are you all right? Is there anything going on? How's your family? If you're studying what's going on in your ministries." There is a commitment on our part to be more than just friends, but rather spiritual companions on some level with one another. And that is what I thought about as I was going forward, because I figured if I was going to do this, I needed to live with somebody. I needed to live in community. I needed to live with others on the same path, because doing it by myself, I didn't think it would be possible. because of the demands and just who I am as a person. And as I was thinking about all that, I read a commentary today on the gospel, and it wasn't that Jesus in the gospel, if we were paying attention, it kind of sounds like Jesus is telling his disciples, look, don't go up to the high part. People will know who you are if you know they're my disciples. Go down a little bit and just think how good you're going to feel when they invite you to a higher place. That wasn't the point of the story. From this particular commentator's view, it was being a follower of Jesus is when you put your life for him and you're willing to walk with the least among them. You're willing to walk with those who have less than you have. You're willing to share what you have with others who need to maybe have you in their lives at a time, and vice versa. You're able to also then receive from others who have from you. And I was reflecting on that, and that's probably, this commentator probably didn't know it, but for me, that's kind of in a nutshell for me what my Augustinian calling has been. That in some way or another, I use my gifts and my talents, I share them with my brothers, not because I'm good and I could do a lot of things, but rather when I do that, I reveal how God works in my life, and I invite others to share with me how God is revealed in their lives. And together, we gain a deeper understanding of the presence of God in the world.